I spend most of my day at university. In the remaining time, I work to cover my expenses and not be a burden to my family. I prefer doing DoorDash deliveries, usually from 8 p.m. to midnight on weekdays. On weekends, I work more. It was a Saturday. Since the university was on break, I started working at 6 p.m. that day. After dozens of deliveries, it was getting late, around 1 a.m., and I had just 3 deliveries left. Except for one, the delivery addresses were all close by. After delivering the first one, an elderly and sweet uncle answered the door and gave a generous tip. After thanking him, I set the navigation for the last 2 deliveries. For the second delivery, I parked my car in front of the house and called the customer. All the lights in the house were off, and maybe the person had fallen asleep while waiting for the order. After 2 unanswered calls, I probably woke the person up. One of the room lights turned on, and then a middle-aged man opened the door. After taking the delivery, he started asking questions about my work hours and the number of deliveries I had left. Although I thought it wasn't any of his business, I politely answered to be courteous. I mentioned that the last delivery was just 3 houses away. The man shuddered for a moment and said, "What? Nobody lives there. A family lived there 2 years ago and then moved." After hearing this, I felt a bit uneasy and had doubts about making the delivery. After thinking for about 20 minutes, I decided to proceed. I parked my car in front of the house and called the man, hoping he would come out. There was no response. After repeatedly calling him, he answered and said he would come out in a moment. I didn't understand why the other man said nobody lived there. About 15 minutes later, the man managed to come out, and I delivered his order. He said the money was inside and I should wait a bit. I was annoyed at being kept waiting. After 5 minutes, he came out, wanted to give a tip, and asked me to come inside. I refused to enter and asked for the payment. The man seemed angry, tried to pull me inside, and I pushed him away. As I ran towards my car, I noticed someone else trying to open the door. Recently, I had seen news about DoorDash drivers facing such situations, and considering the high crime rate, I carried a knife in my pocket. I took out the knife, told them to stay away, and that I wasn't afraid of potential situations. The men seemed frightened and left. I got into my car and went to a safe place. I called 911 and reported the incident. The police arrived soon after. They confirmed the house was abandoned with broken windows, and they managed to find the criminals through the cameras of other houses in the neighborhood. The police informed me that the individuals had a criminal record and had committed similar crimes before. They advised me to be more cautious and, if necessary, avoid working late hours. I'm Jack. I've been working as a pizza master in a place for many years. Usually there are 4 people on shift. One more person and I make the pizzas, while 2 brothers, Harry and Tom, distribute the orders to customers. One evening, Harry said he couldn't come to work because he was not feeling well. It was a busy night, and since Tom couldn't handle delivering the orders alone, I decided to take on the task. The pizza shop belonged to my uncle, so taking extra orders wasn't a problem for me. Before becoming a pizza maker, I had worked in delivery for a year or 2, so I wasn't worried. There was a kind-hearted elderly lady, around 60-65 years old, who was one of our regular customers. She had placed an order that evening. I was excited about making my first delivery and seeing this old lady. Her house was a 20-minute drive away, located towards the outskirts of the city. As I approached her house, I noticed a hooded man walking in the middle of the road. I honked to get him to move aside, but he continued walking as if nothing happened, not even looking back. After waiting for a long time with the horn, he suddenly stopped but remained motionless, still refusing to turn around. Strangely, when he finally moved aside, I couldn't see his face because it was dark. Upon reaching the elderly lady's house and ringing the doorbell, she replied, "Just a minute, dear. I'll be right there." While waiting for her, I looked around and noticed the hooded man watching me from beside a tree. Even though his eyes weren't visible, I could feel his gaze on me. Despite feeling a bit uneasy, I ignored it, turned my face away, and continued waiting for the elderly lady. She soon arrived and offered me a cup of tea, explaining that it was cold outside. I couldn't refuse her hospitality, so I accepted. As she closed the door behind us, I noticed the hooded man still watching us. Although a bit unnerved, I quickly drank my tea, explaining that I had to leave due to the busy night. As I approached my car, I saw that the man was still standing there. I shouted, "What's your problem, buddy?" But he remained silent. I returned to my workplace. After finishing my shift, I went home, unable to shake off thoughts of that man. It was difficult, but I managed to fall asleep. The next day when I went to work, I saw the police entering the shop. They informed me that a murder had occurred, and the last recorded footage showed me entering that lady's house. I was asked to go to the police station to give a statement. Later, I learned that the elderly lady had been found dead in her home. I shared the events of the previous night with the police. They searched the neighborhood's security camera records to find the hooded person. The police quickly apprehended the killer. According to them, the man had a criminal record and he could have harmed me. The idea that he might have posed a threat to me lingered in my mind, plunging me into frightening and deep thoughts. My family owns a burger joint, and due to insufficient staff for food orders, my father hired me. I had just gotten my driver's license, and without hesitation, I started working. I usually delivered orders to customers in the nearby area. My father informed me that he had received an order from an out-of-town location and I needed to go there. As someone with limited experience, having recently acquired my license, I wasn't very confident. But due to the busy workload, it was necessary for me to make the delivery. I opened Google Maps and set my route and hit the road. From the maps, the delivery location seemed to be in a very deserted area, and it sent shivers down my spine. As I approached the delivery point, there were cornfields on both sides of the road. I decided to double-check the maps, thinking I might have made a mistake. There was no issue with the address, but I wasn't too keen on navigating through the cornfields. Thinking I needed to make the delivery promptly because of the workload, I gathered my courage and decided to go through. After passing through the cornfield, I came face to face with a house that looked like an abandoned farm. I called the customer, informed them that I had arrived with the order, and received a "I'll be right there" response. The person who came was a middle-aged man in farmer attire. He wanted to give a tip and insisted I come inside for it. Without much thought, I explained that I couldn't do that, asked him to take the money, and expressed my desire to leave. The farmer, with a displeased look, replied, "Just a minute. Let me get your money." About 5 minutes passed. The farmer was accompanied by 2 more people, and as soon as I saw baseball bats in their hands, I sprinted towards my car. In panic, I tripped on a stone and fell. The men started hitting me with the bats, taking my phone, wallet, and all the money and valuables in the car. Clearly, their intention was not to kill, but to rough me up a bit and steal valuable items. They didn't take my car. After regaining consciousness, I headed back to the workplace and narrated the entire incident to my father. They rushed me to the hospital. While I was in the hospital, my family had contacted the police and reported the incident. After a process of 2-3 days, I learned that those 3 individuals had been apprehended and sent to prison. Since that day, I only delivered orders to nearby or city locations.